Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to look at the intro to sound design using a software called Audacity. And what we're going to go through is basically the interface of Audacity, and then what does it mean to edit multiple tracks at the same time, and then a very important point, which is noise removal, a little tricky to do in those audio editing softwares. Then we're going to look at what kind of effects we can apply. Then we're going to look at envelopes and how you control volume in particular. And then finally, how you export something. So the example that we're going to go through in order to see all of these points is we're going to try and make a soundscape of someone walking along a beach and then getting closer and closer to the shore, and then hearing like waves and seagulls and boat horns. So I've already downloaded the necessary files from freesound.org. I'm going to put them there, and then I'm going to drag and drop all of them in here. And hopefully, yeah, cool. So now we're in Audacity, right? You see that all of these on the left are all tracks, right? And they're all stereo because you have two channels. There's two lines. One is the left channel and one is the right channel. Okay. On the top left here, you have what is called the transport controls, which is just known as like play, pause, stop, go to the beginning, go to the end, and record. These guys here are the tools that we're going to use. So there's the select tool, there's the envelope tool, the draw tool if you actually want to draw waveforms, and then zoom, time shift. I'm not sure what time shift does, never used it. And then copy, paste. These are kind of useful also, but we'll see when we deal with selection. And these you shouldn't have to change ever. This is where you want to record stuff, and this is which kind of like playback you want to use. So are you using like the built-in speakers of your computer, or are you using like Bluetooth speakers, for example? This is where you would change it. But so for now, let's start by putting all of our tracks as to where we want them to be. So this guy here, I'm going to click on solo, which means only this track is going to play. We're going to listen to it. That's going to be our boat horn. This guy's going to go towards the end. And so to select a track, I'm going to use the time shift tool, and that's going to move it towards the end. Okay, because I only want to hear the boat horn when we're done. And then what is this guy? I'm going to click solo again, play it here. Okay, these are waves. So the waves, we want them, kind of want them throughout, right? They're just going to become louder and louder. And then let's see about the next one. This is seagulls. Okay, seagulls, we also want them to be louder, but maybe they start. What do you hear first? You hear the seagulls first, and then you hear the waves. So the waves are going to move a little bit further. Okay, and then the last one is going to be footsteps, but we can barely hear them, right? So usually we would like to have things or like sound that are between -12 and -8 decibels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the selection tool. I'm going to select it here, and I'm going to my effects, and there's a bunch of effects. One of those that we're going to look at is normalize. And normalize is basically taking all of your sound and making it so that the loudest sound reaches that value. So I'm going to put it at like -8 and see what it does. Click OK, and you see the waveform is appearing, so it's a lot louder now. Yeah. Now I can hear them properly. Cool. Except that this guy is going to be a little bit too short, right? We want it to have over and over. So I'm going to click copy here. I'm going to do Command C, and then right there, put my cursor here, and then Command V. And then back here again, cursor, Command V, and back here again, Command V. Oh, come on. Yeah, cool. Okay. And we kind of want that to be constant, right? It's just going to be a loop of the sounds. I go back at the beginning. Okay. Let's see what happens here is that there's a little cluck. So maybe we can get rid of that cluck. And select it, delete. See if we can hear the mess I made. Is it a mess? I can barely hear it, actually. Because the quality of walking on sand is so close to noise. And you feel like, okay, I'm stumbling a little bit, but it's all right. And then delete this part. Okay. Let's say the person who's walking is just limping. And we're going to remove this one. It's here. Let's walk here. Cool. All right. So I'm going to remove the solo, and now I have this track. That works fine. So the next step is to start adding these guys, the seagulls. Okay. We want them to start like far away in the distance and then sort of come slowly. And so to do that, we're going to use this tool, the envelope tool. And the envelope tool basically allows you to control the volume of the track that you're using. And you do that by adding little like key points or dots, and then by dragging it up or down. So I'm going to add one here, and I'm going to add one to the left there. And that's going to make the seagulls sort of fade in. Sweet. Go back to the selection tool, and let's see how those two sound. So I'm going to mute our horns, I'm going to mute our waves, and just see how these work. So walking. Okay, seagulls are coming slowly. Okay, now there's not much happening, so maybe this is a good time to make the waves come in. So we're going to stop again, and I'm going to unmute the waves. These are going to be so loud, probably. Let's see. Yeah, so we're going to have to move them first, perhaps a little bit further. And then we could do the same thing for the envelope. There's another effect which we can use, which is selecting, say, all of these, and then we're going to do effect and fade in. And fade in just like fades it in so that on the right hand side it is at the normal volume, on the left hand side it's at 0, and it linearly moves from 0 to the target volume. Yeah, okay. It's still a little bit loud, especially compared to our seagulls and compared to our footsteps. So if it's too loud, we're going to select the whole track, and we're going to do the same thing as before. Normalization, and we're going to normalize it to like less than that, maybe 15. So minus 15 decibels. And you see how it became a lot smaller like this. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, so a little bit more natural. Yeah, the waves are perfect. Cool. So maybe this guy here is still a little bit too loud, right? So if we want to change just that part, we go back to our envelope tool, and we're gonna do it like this, just to like reduce the volume at that particular point, right? Up, close enough. Again, like all these demos, I'm just showing you how to do it. If you really want to pay attention, you would need to like, not pay attention. If you want to do it properly, you would need to spend a lot more time going a little bit deeper into those details. So let's see now. Okay, it's not as overpowering anymore. Cool. And so now we have our last step. So we're going to unmute our boat horn, and let's see how it sounds just as it is right now. Whoa, that's like the boat is 20 meters away from us. So to do that, we're going to do our normalize again, and we're going to normalize it to the same as the seagulls, maybe a little bit lower. So normalize, and we're going to do minus 20. Cool. Okay. Okay, it sounds like it would be more in the distance now. Nice. Maybe we add those seagulls again towards the end. So let's do copy, put it right there, and then paste it. Cool. Okay. And let's say we stop at the end. So we're going to select at the end of the horn. So we're going to select all of these and then delete them. Sweet. Let's just solo these for a second and see what happens. Okay, there's no sound there. It's kind of beautiful. So now to show you how noise removal works, we're going to add one last part, which is going to be a spoken vocals that I found on the internet. And we're going to see how the spoken vocals is kind of like a dirty recording, and how we're going to be able to like remove that dirtiness or that noise to make it sound a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to drag and find my recording, and it's a Chinese poem that I found, and it's here. Okay. And so let's listen to it. Just solo, go back to the beginning.
滚滚长江东逝水，浪花淘尽英雄。是非成。
So you hear that hiss, the zzz.
滚滚长。
That's what's called noise. It's sort of, the more you zoom into it, so it's command 1 to zoom. It has all these like weird artifacts. All of this, and we want to remove this. And so what we can do is we first like capture the profile of the sound. So it's about 1 second. No, that's less than 1 second. Let's do a whole second. Yeah, that's actually okay. Let's remove this guy because we don't want it. There's a little weird sound here as well. There's some clicking. Is there? Yep. There's like 2 clicking at the beginning. You can remove those. And then we have all of this. It's about a second of noise. And we're going to tell Audacity, okay, this is what we want to remove. So first we click on noise reduction. And without doing any of this, we first get noise profile. We get the noise profile. And so now Audacity knows, okay, so this is what I need to remove. And then we're going to select the whole track. Okay. Now that we've selected the whole track, I'm going to go back to Effect, go back to Noise Reduction, and without paying too much attention to these numbers, I'm going to just click OK. And so now if we play it back, let's listen to it.
滚滚长江东逝水，浪花淘尽英雄。
we can barely hear the noise, right? It sounds a lot cleaner. Cool. So let's select it again, use the time shift tool, and then move it towards the end, right? So let's imagine that we're, I don't know, you're walking around the beach and you want to like recite some Chinese ancient poetry. It's a free world. Maybe we do it as we're going before we deal with the boat. Yeah, okay. So let's put it here and then remove the solo and then see how all this sounds. Go back to selection tool, click here. It's clearly too low, right? So I'm going to select it again and I'm going to go to normalize, effects, normalize, and this time I'm going to normalize it back to like 10 dB, minus 10 dB. Still a little bit too low. So I'm going to do Command Z. So we go back to our old normalize and do it again. This time at minus 5 dB. Okay. So it's kind of hard to listen to it. So let's see if we can have another kind of dramatic effect in which we put this down, or put this at the end, and then we're going to fade out sort of all of the tracks, and then when we end at the last boat horn, then this is where we're going to play the poem. So let's assume that we start fading out around here, and so there we get to like complete silence. And we're going to do the same over there. And we're going to do, maybe we're going to keep a little bit of footsteps, but just like a little bit lower, right? And so select it again, and then these last guys, let's do Command C, and then select, paste a bunch of times. How does that sound? It's a little glitchy. So like there is this weird like, which for now we're not gonna, for the purposes of this exercise, we're not gonna worry too much about it. But ideally, you would go, it's like there, right? There's one point at which it's this guy here. If we delete it, what happens? Yeah, now it works. Okay. So let's go back to here and add it one more time. And we're just going to fade those a little bit later than the rest of the tracks. So I'm going to add one more here, one more there. Let's go down. Okay. Let's see how this sounds when we play it from beginning of the horns, so from here. So walking. Oh, it's completely soloed. Okay. Go back. Everything is fading out.
长江东逝水，浪花淘尽英雄。是非成败转头空，青山依旧在，几度夕阳红。白发渔樵江渚上，惯看秋月春风。一壶浊酒喜相逢，古今多少事，都付笑谈中。
Okay, so maybe we add another track. So because it feels a little bit empty, maybe we can fade in some musical soundtrack to give some context to the poem. So we're going to add one last file that I downloaded from YouTube and put it here. I'm just going to find, yeah, a small excerpt. So let's see how this sounds like here. What about the end? Because we kind of want to end with it, right? This is a little bit intense. Can we grab this part? Okay, so maybe we just get the end. So let's zoom out. Remove all the previous part, and then zoom in again, zoom out again, move it here, and as it will start, we're going to go back to our envelope and say like overall, it's just going to be a lot softer than the rest, and it should come in very simple. Okay, remove the solo. Let's see when the horn, let's see, let's start here. Everything kind of fades down. This one might be too loud still. Let's see.
滚滚长江东逝水，浪花淘尽英雄。是非成败转头空，青山依旧在，几度夕阳红。白发渔樵江渚上，惯看秋月春风。一壶浊酒喜相逢，古今多少事，都付笑谈中。
Okay, so it kind of works, except it cuts very harshly at the end.
古今多少事，都付笑谈中。
I think the problem is that the file does cut out. So we're going to be very barbaric, and we're going to cut out the poem before the end, disregarding the author.
一壶浊酒喜相逢，古今多少事。
And then maybe we just stop here and we'll remove all of that. Okay, cool. So we kind of have our composition. So now the last thing we're going to look at are exports. So if you save and you command S, then it's going to create an AUP file. So my C poem, and that's kind of like the photo, like PSD files or AI files. These are the files in which you work. The actual export happens, surprise, in export. And you can export in multiple ways. If you want to export to MP3, it's going to ask you to possibly download the MP3 library, because it used to be copyrighted for like 50 years, and then recently the copyright left 2 years ago, I think. So now MP3 is in the public domain. Wave is going to make massive files, but high quality, and OGG is optimized for the web. So because we're going to probably use it on the web, we're going to click on OGG. And we're going to say my C poem, and I'm going to go to desktop, commlab 5, and my C poem, save. Okay, this is where I can use the metadata, so track title, C poem, album title, I don't know, track number 1, year 2021, we're in the future, jar, WTF, comments, none. Okay, You don't need to add any of these, but this is where it would show up if you opened it in like VLC or iTunes or any other software. Click OK, it's exporting. And then we're going to go to our Finder, and we're going to see mycpoem.ogg. I'm going to open it with VLC. Okay, it's coming. Fast forward. The boat is here. Everything fades down. Music comes in.
滚滚长江东逝水，浪花淘尽英雄。是非成败转头空，青山依旧在，几度夕阳红。白发渔樵江堵上，惯看秋月春风。一壶浊酒喜相逢，古今多少事。
So that covers our exports, our envelopes, how you change the volume over time in the track. The effects, we looked at normalize, but feel free to look at all of the other effects, and we'll talk about it more in class. Noise removal, how you first take the print of the noise and then remove it afterwards for any sort of like dirty recordings. Multi-track editing, how you move things around, copy, paste, zoom, and the interface in general. Audacity has an interface that looks very, very ugly, but it's a very powerful software. So for any sort of like podcast, edit, mixes that you might need, Audacity is your friend.